Welcome gamers! Steve G here from Pickpocket Press, and today I've got a 5-minute video on low fantasy gaming. Magic! So there are 4 main ways that LFG magic is different to your standard 5e magic. The first is that all magic, whether it's arcane or divine, is both dangerous and uncertain. And the risk that attaches to it is not only relevant to the person using the magic, the caster, or someone drinking a potion or using the ability of a magic sword. Not just dangerous to that person, but to anyone in the vicinity. So enemies, allies, anyone nearby is potentially at risk when magic is used. So, the uncertainty mechanic that attaches to arcane magic is called the Dark and Dangerous Magic Test. And the way it works is, every time you cast a spell or use a magic item, you roll d20, and if you roll a 1, or roll a 10, I'm fine, you trigger an effect from the DDM table. It's a D100 table with all sorts of effects from getting advantage on your next spell's damage dice, or the current spell, summoning a horrible creature from the void that tries to eat everybody in the vicinity, including you, or maybe your shadow disappears for 1d12 months. Might make some people suspicious. So there's all sorts of things that can happen. So those things happen in addition to your original spell. So your spell still happens, or whatever it was that you wanted, but you get this additional effect. And the special thing about this test is, every time you have to make the test, if it doesn't trigger, the chance increases by 1 each time. So if you cast 5 spells during the adventure and it hasn't triggered yet, then your tally is at 6. So when you roll your d20, you want to get more than 6, 8, to avoid a DDM effect. Oh, and before I forget, if you trigger a DDM effect, your tally resets to 1. You lose 1 point of luck and the DDM tally resets back to 1, so that you're probably safe for a little while after triggering 1. Alright, so for occultists, who are the divine magic users in LFG, generally speaking, their magic is more reliable, provided that the cultist has favour. And in order to obtain favour, and you either have it or don't have it, you must perform the tenets of your god. So if you worship a god of healing and happiness, for example, if you heal someone, you gain favour, and so then when you try and use another magical cultist ability, it just works. But having done that, then your favour is expended, so you no longer have favour. And if you try and use another magical ability before you've had a chance to regain favour, you have to make a will check. And if you fail that check, 1, well, I would have made it. Let's say I rolled 19, whatever. If you fail the will check, then you roll on the Divine Rebuke table. And that's a bit similar to the Dark and Dangerous Magic table, but generally speaking, not as severe. But it includes things such as, let me refresh my memory. So, Gift of Truth. The cultist cannot intentionally lie for 1d6 months. Or Shameful Pride. The cultist's skin manifests ugly boils, causing 1d4 charisma loss. The condition heals in 1d4 months. Or Plague of Flies. When you're in the open, you attract an abundance of flies, and so on. And sometimes, in order to get rid of these things, you have to perform a rite of atonement. And there's a table for that, and it's all sorts of things, but might include, for example, killing an opposing god's agent, or defiling an opposing god's temple. So things of a divine, religious nature. So the number 2 way that LFG magic is different is we have cut down the spell list a lot. There's only 20 spells per level, and because LFG has a maximum class level of 12, the highest level of spells you can learn is 6th level. So there are no 7th, 8th, and 9th level spells in LFG. In addition, a magic user can only learn a number of spells equal to their intelligence modifier per level, or maybe +1 if they find a scroll or something in the wild. But so a LFG magic user is closer to a 5th edition sorcerer, for example. A player will have to make hard decisions about what spells, what types of spells they want to learn. Lastly, because we've cut down the spell list, we have removed a lot of the what we would call easy mode spells. So there is no raise dead magic in LFG. There's no detect lies. There's no create food and drink, purify water, and there's no long range teleportation magic. So we've removed a number of those sort of convenience spells. All right, so the third way that LFG magic is different to your standard 5e magic is we've gone back to the old school spell interruption rules, which is so the way it works is if you're trying to cast a spell, if you take damage before your turn in the initiative order, you can't cast a spell that round. So you don't lose your spell slot, but you have to do something else. You can make a normal attack or drink a potion or whatever, but you cannot cast a spell that round. Finally, LFG, we've renamed all of the spells, so there's no magic missile, silent image, hold monster, or control weather. Instead, we have shadows and dust, lash of unerring pain, crush of the warp, and conclave of wind and sky. So just to give a bit more flavor, and we've tweaked some of the details of some spells. So for example, telepathy, which is called strange joining, there's a 30% chance that an alien entity intrudes on the telepathy and starts asking questions or voicing its opinion. Or for tainted vigor, which is a strength spell, effectively, the character gets stronger, but they also have an intrinsic savagery about them that they didn't have before. So we've made some tweaks, some subtle, not so subtle changes to some of the magic spells. And I should say, at the back of the book, there is a conversion table, so it will tell you all the original spell names and the new spell names, so it's easy to figure out what they've been changed to. All right, and that's it for my 5-minute video on low fantasy gaming magic. As always, I hope it made sense. I hope you like it. Be glad to hear any comments down below. And for next video, I don't actually know yet what the next video will be, so it's going to be a surprise, but I'm sure it'll be fun. And until then, cheers.